Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to you, Chaps and Chapettes. And thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Guitar Geeks Podcast. Now, this episode is done ever so slightly differently. I'm actually filming this video while I'm editing because my guest this week is so busy. In fact, we could only get an hour's slot in order to get him in and have a chat and obviously catch up and bring you, the guest, on the podcast. So I apologise firstly in advance for this being a lot shorter than the episodes usually are. This guest will be coming on again at the future, and we can have a lot more of a chat and catch up and a more of an in-depth talk about every aspect of things that we wanted to talk about. But say, due to the nature of it, I could only get him in for a certain amount of time, so I pre-planned all the questions unlike usual. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode.
So without further ado, I would gracefully like to introduce my guest for tonight's edition of the Guitar Geeks podcast, the one and only Mikey Demus, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing, Mikey?
I'm good, thanks, man. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. I'm sunburnt, but I'm okay.
That's good. Have you been out? You've obviously been outdoors. You haven't been on a sunbed, I'm guessing.
No, not quite on a sunbed. I was out for a walk in the countryside with my missus, and we just got sunburned to hell.
Oh, good. That means it's the official start of summer.
Yeah, definitely.
Sunburn.
You have to be careful of being the redhead. You've got to I say redhead.
Yeah, dude. I've had it a few times in my life, like proper sunburn, and it's always in the UK as well. It's funny, you go other places and it's like different kind of heat, and you're like, but there's something about the UK. You're like, oh, I'm fine, and then half an hour later,
because it leads you into like a false sense of security, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't really put on sun cream or anything like that in the UK, but abroad you kind of like prepped. But
yeah,
here it's just like, oh, I'll be fine, and then I never am. So yeah, you'd think I'd have figured that out by now, but no.
If you haven't figured it out, then I've got no hope. Awesome. So we're going to crack on with some of the questions that I've got lined up for you. So firstly, for the people that are unaware and they need a good slap if they do not know who you are you and what do you do?
Okay, so I play guitar for the band Skindred. I've been doing that for approximately 20 years. And I'm also the co-director of Redbeard FX, which is an effects pedal company. I can see you're rocking a shirt, and you have one in shot there, which is radical, awesome. I also do a bit of work with BIM. I also do some consulting on the side for various companies as well. I do all kinds of stuff.
It's always a busy man. Hence why it's taken so long to get you on the show, but I'm so happy to finally have you here. So we got to bring it to roots. So where did Mikey Demus's guitar journey start?
I guess I was probably about 8 years old when my dad was like, you should try to put a guitar in my hands. And I was like, so you should try and get your head around this. And I just wasn't interested. I was obviously come up listening to a lot of music, but never really. So I guess I always have that thing where you have to be good at something straight off the bat, or you lose interest really quickly. I've got a crappy attention span. But for some reason, when I was about 11, I think I was like, I saw like Jimi Hendrix Woodstock performance, and I was like, that's the most badass thing I've ever seen. And I was like, right, I don't care now. I'm gonna have a crack at picking up a guitar and having a go. And quite quickly realizing it's not as easy as some people make it look. And yeah, I've been pretty much obsessed with guitar since then, since like age of 11. My dad was a really pivotal person in my entire deal with the guitar, really. He was the one who sort of put a guitar in my hands first time. And when, he bought me my first guitar, which was like a pretty cheap acoustic, the idea being if you can play something on a cheapo acoustic, then you'll be allowed to like discuss electric guitar sort of thing. I borrowed, he had like this old 70s Les Paul copy that I sort of learned to play on a bit as well. which was weighed a ton. And my dad's a proper lefty. I'm actually right-handed. Biggest trade secret. I'm actually right-handed, but I play guitar left-handed because it's just the way I learned. And at no point did anyone discourage me from playing left-handed. I had no concept that it was like upside down or different. As far as I was concerned, I was picking up a guitar and playing a guitar. I had no concept of anything else. No one sort of told me. So I was kind of like stuck at that point. But when I've broken, a lot of people have asked me that in the past, and I've sort of broken it down and thought, even doing this, like, always seemed to feel correct. Never this. Like, even when you're like a kid and you're like, hairbrush tennis racket in the mirror, I seem to think something tells me that this was always felt right, always. And so even though I do everything else right-handed, I'd right-handed, etc., but I'm left-footed as well, which is weird. I kick my left foot, I'm right-handed. I'm a real mess. If I ever try to play the drums, it would be,
well, I'm
really sketchy.
I'm right-handed, and I tried playing the drum kit right-handed. I was getting so muddled up right-handed. So then I went to a left-handed and I played an open-handed style, and he just worked so much better for me. It was really weird.
That's it. I think like my I could play a left-handed kit, but I'd have to. I want to be like open-handed up top, but then left foot is a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. So it'd be a real pig to play drums and use someone else's drum kit. It'd have to be a complete, move everything around and change it. It would be a nightmare. But yeah, I've been playing that way since I was old enough to kind of air guitar, and it was just sort of stuck. It's been a sort of a help and a hindrance in its own way over the years. It's kind of good because I think if I played right-handed, I'd have a load more guitars, a lot more of a problem with guitar ownership. I'm kind of limited at the moment, which is probably a good thing because I'm quite obsessed still, even to this day, about it's like Pokemon, isn't it? You kind of want, I just need that now, and I just want to get that now, and then that's it, and that's sort of never ending. And accepting that is kind of part of it.
It's quite interesting because one of the questions I had lined up for you, which kind of actually been a really nice segue onto that, was say being left-handed makes finding gear incredibly difficult because you can always find, I really like that Les Paul, but it's just not left-handed. So I'm sure
really used to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I mean, it's kind of, I think there's less options across like price breaks. There's good options for entry level stuff, and there's good options for spending a lot of money, and it's difficult to find good options in that kind of middle ground. Like, I've got 1,200 quid burning a hole in my pocket. I mean, some people that would be a lot of money that is a lot of money for guitar, but some people will spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on a guitar, and once you get into that territory, it's like have whatever you want, I guess. But I find there's a struggle with those sorts of options and really old stuff as well. I own a bunch of vintage stuff, but always on the lookout for something super old and rare. But I think that something that's dawned on me recently as well is that even if you can get something left-handed, especially old things, especially old guitars, is they're not often very good. They're not often very playable, and a lot of the time it's because a left-handed player was absolutely nowhere near this instrument when it was created or put together. So it's just kind of like, it doesn't always work with just
That's
like
really
flip reverse
point.
it. Yeah, there's little things like that have sort of dawned on me over the years. And as a lefty player, like you're born into this, you use what you can get your hands on, you accept what's put in front of you. And that goes for I've never had like a left-handed guitar tech. I've had handfuls of guitar techs over like the years. Not one of them's left-handed. And so it's kind of like, you've got the right-handed player handing you what they hope is okay. Like, there's no way to really know. There's and don't get me wrong, I've had some cracking guitar techs and they've worked for lefty players, but there's always that disconnect, that kind of language barrier of they're giving you their best intention of what they think you the way you like something set up, and they're never really going to know because they can't properly play it. In the same way that if I was guitar teching for someone, I'd be hitting and hoping for the best, handing them this right-handed guitar and going, hope it works, hope it works for you, man. But that's just been part of it. And I think it's the same with left-handed guitars. And I've I don't know, I've been on this sort of quest to own a few old things, and I've got a bunch of old things, but some of them are quite unplayable. And half of me is now like, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff and just maybe buy a really nice instrument that's made by like an independent builder, support someone in the process, and get something truly playable. And it's just hard. It's hard parting with stuff. I've sold so much stuff over the years. I've only
You and
got
me
a few.
both.
Yeah, I've only got a few things left. I don't have a lot of guitars at home now. I've only got a couple, and I don't really want to get rid of them.
That's half the problem. Sometimes, like I was always on the quest up to find a really nice Les Paul, and I've had a couple in the past, and none of them just never sat right. And I had this ESP Eclipse for a couple of weeks, and I knew it was always just going to get passed on at some point. And then I found a gold top, and then I tried it out, and I was like, "Yeah, here we go. This is the one. This is the one I've been waiting for." And
nice.
Obviously,
yeah, I
finding
really
a
love
nice
the look of
Les
those.
Paul.
I really love the look of those Eclipses because they
You
look
used to have
really
one?
cool. They're like, yeah, I've had a few over the years. I had two of the LTD ones and an actual ESP Japanese Eclipse, and they look gorgeous. But I just couldn't get over the fact that I felt like I was playing somebody else's guitar. It wasn't mine, and it didn't feel like me, and I just couldn't get on board with it. It's like it was like, I don't know, it just didn't seem right. It's like something's just not right about it. So I moved them on, and yeah, it was quite tricky to move on a left-handed ESP Eclipse because it's kind of a semi-valuable guitar.
You don't
And
see them very
this
often.
is the problem with buying and selling lefties. Like, not only is it hard to get get lefties, but it's also hard to move them on over a certain price point. Like, I've had lots of guitars that are like, you can sell for like sub £1,000, and you move them on, okay, and whatever. But anything over like £1,000, if something's valuable, it's really hard because you've got to have the right person at the right time with the money burning a hole in their pocket, and then they find it. It's really difficult, Versus right-handers is like, in and out all the time. But it would be different from like if I've got like a Les Paul, like I don't know, £2,000 Les Paul that I'm looking to get rid of, versus a £2,000 slightly metally, Japanese Les Paul copy kind of thing. One's way easier to move on than the other because not only do you have to find a lefty person with £2,000 in their pocket, but you've also got to find one that's also into the idea of like metal and stuff being slightly metal tinged. And it's like finding those people is difficult when you're looking to move something on. But yeah, I'm like a pro Del Boy buyer seller left-handed guitar person now.
So
I'm like a
left-handers
rinky-dink
listening,
Joe.
You know where to go.
Yeah, I'm like ghetto Joe Bonamassa backwards.
That's one way to put it.
I'm gonna retract that statement. I don't think so.
Joe Bonamassa, if you're listening, we're sorry. So we kind of touched upon Jimi Hendrix, and so growing up, what was the big influential albums for you that sort of started to shape your path?
So when I was a kid, when me and my sister were kids, we'd sort of drive around in the back of my dad's car, and he'd have lots of stuff on tape, and we'd have like lots of bootleg stuff from like Camden Market and things like that, and end up listening to like, have lots of like Rolling Stones, Beatles, Chuck Berry. That was always playing in the background, all that kind of rock and roll from the 60s. And that was a big framework for just like sing along, kind of knowing all the words, knowing music that like you can sing, and not even just the words, but also like the guitar-y bits, so like have that kind of sing-songiness to them that you can sing along and they're memorable. And that kind of like, that kind of approach to songs has always sort of been there, really. I'm a big fan of soul music. My dad listened to a lot of soul and rhythm and blues and that kind of thing, or blues music as well. So I came up listening to a lot of that, and then punk rock as well. He introduced me to sort of punk rock as I got a bit older. Like, all the big hitters, like bands like the Sex Pistols and the Damned and things like that. I think he secretly kind of like, he was a bit marginally subversive, my dad. So it was like, he'd be getting me into things like watching the Young Ones and things like that, and and that was always like tinged with like punk rock and like alternative music and like Motorhead and things like that, like things I wasn't really supposed to like, but he was sort of like feeding me, like, you know, secretly,
Trying
which was
to
really cool. But
subtly influence you.
yeah, which is cool, you know, and like loud guitar stuff, and you know, not necessarily like, I'll use the term carefully, not like dad rock, not like, you know, middle of the road, well, you know, Dire Straits or anything like that.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. It was more always a bit like had an attitude and had an edge to it, where it's like that kind of stuck. And then of course when I hit my teens, like, you know, coming up in the 90s, all this alternative music from the US, especially, you know, well, there was like Britpop stuff in the UK that was really influential. I was a massive Blur fan, still am. You know, loved Graham Coxon's playing, and all the stuff that was coming in from the US. So you've got like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, you know, all that stuff just hit me like, and it was like you find your own identity with this sort of like edgier, aggressive, like alternative music. And yeah, somewhere between sort of the Beatles, Rage Against the Machine, and Nirvana and the Rolling Stones and that kind of thing was like, that's sort of the building blocks of kind of what got me excited about playing guitar, I think, or just, you know, just music in general. It wasn't even like I'm going to be a guitar player. Guitar was like escapism, and you know, I didn't have anything to do when I was a kid. There wasn't anything to do with, you know, I sound fucking old now, but there wasn't like, I didn't grow up like, I wasn't a skateboarder, so there wasn't like a skate park or anything like that. You know, I wasn't really sporty, so I wasn't like, I played like football every day at school with like my mates at lunchtime, but like there was never like, it wasn't in after school sports. I never had it. I was just like, I could have quite happily just watched TV and that's it, you know. I didn't have
Cartoon
anything.
Network.
And I was, yeah. I was, and do you know what? I remember being so desperately bored as a kid, like, because I had all this like no outlet for anything. I remember being like so bored as a kid, like at some points I was like so frustrated. And then when the guitar came along into my life, it was like the answer. And you know, I'd lock myself in my room and I'd play that thing for like 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You know, it would be all I would do, and just I wasn't even very good. I sucked. I was awful, and it would just be like playing Smoke on the Water over and over and over again, or like turning the amp up until it fed back, and then getting told off and having to turn it down, and you know, just doing that for years really. And then
you could be doing for 9 hours in your bedroom.
yeah. Well, I was caught for some of them as well. Trust me. The best one, the best thing was just guitar. Really, I just sort of, I don't know. Other kids really got into like sketchy stuff, but me and some of my friends were really into music, and I just really, 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 really got stuck into guitar. And I've just never really come back from that. Really, guitar's just always been in my life ever since. And you asked me a question about albums, and I sort of didn't really specify, but I think probably the biggest ones were like
No,
In
you said
Utero or
Evil Empire.
Nevermind.
Evil Empire, you put
Nirvana.
on your
Yeah,
Facebook
Evil Empire
the other
by
day.
Rage Against the Machine.
Instagram, sorry.
The first one sort of skipped me by just by a minute. Like, and I heard that after I'd heard Evil Empire first, and then I found out about, you know, the first record after that, and it didn't hit me quite as hard. Obviously, like, you know, there's some classic songs on there, but to me they've been a bit overplayed now, and it's kind of like it didn't have the same edge as the first time I heard Evil Empire. It was kind of like,
what is this?
This what is this? You know, and it had this edge to it that you know the other record didn't, and it was just kind of grittiness that was like right up my alley.
Sax
like
vocals
it sounded like
and Tom's
sounded like an angry band in a little room, unpolished. And there was something in that, you know, and you know, massively into Soundgarden. Like that was just beyond me though. Like Rage Against the Machine was kind of, if you strip the insanity of Tom Morello away, like the riffs were like
quite simple.
I can figure this out. Like someone taught me about drop tuning, and that was like a massive like game changer. And then it was like, you could kind of, oh, right, yeah, figure it out. You could figure out the songs. You could play along to stuff. And then, like, Nirvana weren't a thing anymore. And then the Foo Fighters came along and it was like, oh, yeah, more sort of down-tuned bar chords, wicked, that kind of thing. And I'd be in my room playing along to things for hours and hours and hours and hours. I wasn't really a big, like, solo person, really. I wasn't like, right, I've got to learn scales. I didn't give a shit about any of that. I didn't really care about. I think there was a part of me that thought I should be doing that. I was like, wow, that just seems like too much work, man. That sounds like like lessons, and I was never going to go in for any of that. I'm like, what's the shortest route between me and being able to do something passable? And so it was like, right, Green Day, wicked,
Yeah.
And then you get back in, and then you get like you listen to Green Day and go, oh, and then your dad tells you like, listen to the Ramones. This is, and it's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, and you sort of find where all these pathways of where things came from. And I think that bands, like, when you find your identity, when you find those things, it makes it okay for you to want to play a certain way, want to be a certain way, because you're like, oh, there's other people who do that too,
Would you say that's kind of where a lot of the success that Skindred has come then, is because, as I say, there's not many other bands like Skindred that are out there?
Yeah, there aren't many, but I mean, I only think that we're different in so much that I guess vocally there's not many other bands that do that sort of thing, but it is, fundamentally it's still like rock music, I guess. Like rock and roll, rock music. It's kind of got like a metally edge to it at times. And it's kind of like, I would say it was alternative rock, I don't know, that's probably a really dated term now. I would still say that, we're like in that kind of bag. I would never say we're a metal band. And we've had some riffs that were like metally. I feel like we're like an alternative rock band because we've always been able to do festivals like before it was cool. Like we were always able to do other festivals like Reading and Leeds, or we were able to do that, or play other festivals like we do stuff that hasn't got any other metal bands on the bill, like all over the world. And there's that's really unique position to be in. I just think, I don't know. I think we all draw on different influences in the band, and it all sort of comes across in what we do. It's really hard to say how it gets to the final product. That's a hard question.
Would you say kind of, because obviously in a lot of the Skindred there are subtle effects, you'd like to say you've got octaves, you've got fuzz and wahs for solos, bits and pieces like that. Was it bands like Soundgarden and obviously like Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine, that really started to bring you into that world of effects and utilizing those?
Yeah, totally. Because it's mad. You look at pedalboard pictures these days, and kids are like, "This is my pedalboard." It's like $4,000 worth of kit. And it's like, when I was a kid, it was like, "You've got a wah pedal? Oh my god! You've got an overdrive."
A little Digitech like RP90 or Zoom or whatever.
Is it a cool? I had a Korg Toneworks thing that was cool, and that was it. Like I didn't have tons of gear, and so I think listening to things like Rage was a bit like, what is that guy doing? What is he using? And I don't know about it, but I didn't have access to that kind of stuff. It was not, you couldn't just, if you were like 15 years old, you couldn't just go and buy a Digitech whammy in like, in your local music shop. I don't know, unless you had someone buying it for you. I couldn't afford that stuff. So, and to be honest, it was only until when I joined Skindred that like effects were like a big, you need stuff to kind of set yourself apart. You need a thing. And so, yeah, I lent on some of that stuff, whammies and delays and things like that. That's always been part of my setup, really. So from day one, when I joined the band, I was like, right, because I joined at a point where I needed to learn a couple of songs that already existed. And a couple of them used like whammy stuff. I was like, well, I have to get that now. Just have to do it. So, it was no looking back from that, really. That was all the excuse I needed. But yeah, I've been around the block with effects. Like, there was one point where I owned loads of stuff again and toured with loads of stuff, and then I kind of strip it back again. Then would strip it back. You get like the stress of ownership of having too much stuff, and it's like doesn't necessarily make you any more creative. It's just I think it's worth picking a few key things that you really love and make the most of them.
I will post a picture of your pedal board down here somewhere so people can gawp at it.
Oh yeah, well the one I built most recently, there's in a few photos. That's like a writing board. It's got like 2 delay pedals on it. It's got a whammy, a couple of Thorpies, a couple of Redbeards, 2 delays, and that's it. It's not, but it's a big board because it's got a big control. It's got a big Boss controller.
Yeah,
and it's got like a noise suppressor on it and stuff. But in terms of like weird stuff, there's nothing mega weird on there. It's got a honey badger on it. It's got a Space Echo. It's got a kilobyte on there. The whammy's cool, but it's not like loads of. I mean, it's got 3 drive pedals on there. We're probably talking shit. It's got loads of options on there.
You got everything.
Yeah,
for everything.
I don't know. Yeah, it was more like that was one of those things of like I've got this big pedal board. What can I fit on it? Whereas that's not something I've often done before. It's more like you just take out what you need. But because I've made this board for like trade shows and stuff, and then with the idea of using it for writing as well, it's just sort of stuck like that.
I had the pleasure of seeing your board at the UK Guitar Show, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah, there's a fair few bits on it. It looks really like, but there's not really. I think it's like only got like 7 effects on it, and like 3 of them are drive pedals, and 2 of them are delays. So it's just 2 different kinds of delay. That's about it. It's nothing more to it than that. It's not like anything super weird on there. It's just
what you need to get by, so to speak.
Kind of. I could get by with even less than that, honestly. I could get by with a good sounding amp and just maybe a delay pedal. I think possibly. I don't know these days. Well, again, when I grew up, I had an amp that was like did one thing, and it just did distortion, or it was quiet and unhearable. You turn it up and it just got distorted, and so you just got used to that. But then you get older, and then you realize that amps can do clean things as well, and then you get into like, oh, if I put a pedal in front of it, I'm gonna change the gain and do all that. And so it took me a while to wrap my head around that. And of course now, I've got a multitude of different drive pedals that do different things, and yeah, like a good clean amp, like the virtues of a good clean amp was something I didn't realize as a youngster. And now I'm kind of like, okay, clean.
You're getting to enjoy everything.
Yeah, I understand it a bit more now.
So let's talk Redbeard, because it's impossible to talk to you and not bring up Redbeard FX.
Okay, so first off, where can you find out about Redbeard FX?
You can find out Redbeard FX in the link in the comment section below, and you can also find them at redbeardfx.com, and you can also find them at Anderton's, and you can also get them from Mikey himself and the wonderful Adrian Thorpe as well.
On the street corner with a big coat with a big load of pedals, and you want to
buy an Octafuzz?
What do you want, mate? What do you want, mate? No, you can buy them direct from our website, redbeardfx.com. You can buy them from all different dealers now. Obviously, including Anderton's and a bunch of others around the UK and some more internationally as well.
So Redbeard
we've got a constant growing dealer base.
Where did Redbeard FX start? Was it a shower thought? Was it tinkering? Where did the origins of Redbeard start?
I just knew that I wanted to have like some kind of side hustle kind of thing to play in music, because as much as I love being in a band, you have massive periods of inactivity in so much as you're at home with like your thoughts. Like you're not as much as we tour, I'll come home and be at home doing like not doing band stuff for weeks on end, and I needed something to fill that time with, really, because just to be creative with. And I didn't. I don't know. Just lightning struck my head, and I talked to a good friend of mine about it, and they kind of like put the idea in my head of like, why don't you do like an effects brand or something? And I had all these reservations or all these reasons why it wouldn't work. Like, well, I could do that because of X, Y, Z, and da 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 da. And then they systematically just said, well, that's bullshit, that's bollocks, and removed all these reasons I'd sort of thought out. And then I was like, yeah, I was a bit defenseless to it really, and thought, yeah, there's actually nothing stopping me from just doing that. So yeah, I'd known Thorpe for a little bit. We met at like Manson's guitar show, I think a year or two previously, and I'd sort of already, I'd spent a few months sort of cooking up some ideas. Didn't really know where to start, and I thought, well, maybe I'll get some advice from Thorpe. And I went to Thorpe with a series of questions, and he sort of like shot me down eventually, like initially about it. He was like, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I was like, oh right, okay. And then he said, come up to the unit, and we'll have a chat about it all, and I'll give you we'll have a proper chat about it. So I went up there and sort of hashed some ideas out, and then a couple of weeks later, he rang me saying like, I want to do this with you. Like, how would you feel about doing this in partnership? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, I definitely want to do that. And it's just gone, it's gone kind of crazy since then. Just, I think that being in business with someone like Thorpe is kind of, things move very quickly. Things become real quite quickly. He doesn't really hang around with, ideas. Like, I will come back to that in 6 months. It's like you press the button on things and things just start happening quickly. Like before you know it, we've got like circuits and PCBs and all this stuff just arriving and happening, and it's like, wow, okay. And then next thing you know, we've got stock like physical pedals that you can play, and it was mind blowing how quickly we turned stuff around. And in that time, even in the last couple of years, like his business has like become super busy, and our business has become super busy. So it's kind of like we're kind of chasing our own tail a bit at the moment, but in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're putting some stuff in place to be able to cope with how it all works. But it has been a challenge. It's been a series of challenges, like meeting demand and thinking, like it's like with being in a band, you've got to think like 6 to 18 months ahead, and just yeah, it's been great. It's been one of the greatest pleasures of my adult life, starting a business with someone who knows what they're doing and watching it go from strength to strength. I'm really stoked with how Redbeard's going.
I mean, I have to say, I absolutely, how much I love my honey badger. At some point, I do want to get a red mist as well, because just some of the dirt from that is just unbelievable. And how you pack such a punch in such a small box is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a really cool pedal, the red mist. It's got loads of headroom. The EQ's really mad in it, and it's surprisingly quiet for like such a high gain drive as well. Like the noise floor is super quiet. Like a couple of our competitors that we kind of A/B'd it with, we were like, it does its own thing, but like, and then it's not a copy of anything. It's its own thing. It's its own circuit. But the noise floor is like exceptionally low, so you can like have it on almost completely like full pelt, and the noise floor is like, it's not like,
yeah,
it's kind of like, which is great. I find it depends what kind of amp you're using it with, and depends what kind of pickups you've got. But I find my favorite sort of setting is like with gain at about 3 o'clock, and anything above 3 o'clock, it kind of starts, when it starts to oscillate and starts going like that. And that's
immense
where you
feedback.
start getting, yeah, that's when it wants to start feeding back. And depending what you're running it into, it will gladly do it. Like if you're putting it in front of a tube amp and you're stood close to the tube amp, it will do, it will go crazy and do that thing. Very much like, it acts really similarly to my favorite kind of valve amp that I use live. It acts really, really, really similarly, like in terms of the EQ and in terms of what the gain does. I can't say that not allowed to say that because I get in trouble, but it's very much like a particular amp.
Yes, which we shall not
a
mention.
Particular high gain amp. Yeah, I can't really. I just get in trouble. It wasn't like it was just unintentionally similar.
A happy accident.
So to speak. Exactly.
One thing that's thought I've always been really impressive with you is how much of a really nice, approachable and humble guy that you are, especially whether it's over through the Facebook forums or in person and interviews, blah, 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 blah. And this was really evident recently on a post on the Facebook guitar forum where there was a chap that had an accident with I think it was his hand, and he had lost a finger or so, and he was asking to swap to see if he could get a left-hand guitar, and you just amazingly turned up and said, "Put me up with a message, we'll sort you out with something." And I think that was just an absolutely incredible gesture. Like, so has more happened with that?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I think, funnily enough, I had a message about it from someone today. I spoke to this guy, and yeah, poor guy. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but he had an injury and had to have. I think he had a finger. I think he lost a finger and had it reattached. And as such, he's like lost the ability to play guitar, like right-handed. Like, you will never play guitar again. It's not happening. Which is awful. I can't imagine being denied that. So rather than just pack it in and call it a day, he posted on a bunch of forums that I'm going to sell my guitar, and I want to try and buy a left-handed equivalent or something and learn to play left-handed. And I read this and my heart just went out to him, really, because how awful, what an awful thing to have to happen. And, being left-handed, I've been incredibly blessed with having all kinds of guitars come in and out of my life. And I realized that it's a minefield trying to find one. And so I spoke to him privately, and I was like, leave it with me, we'll sort you something out. My initial thought was to give him something, just give him a guitar, because I've got, but he was like, he wasn't necessarily fussy, but he had like a Zakk Wylde Epiphone, and I don't have anything like that. I don't have anything with EMGs in it. I don't have anything Les Paul-y. The only Les Paul I do have is like a 70s one, and that's like under lock and key. So
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere. That's like special reserve.
That's kids' inheritance.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's just off limits. But I didn't have anything like that. I would like, well, have this, sort of mid-priced kind of thing. So I got in touch with a few people and whittled it down. And actually, I sourced him something, and from a brand new guitar, and he hasn't received it yet at this point yet. I literally got a message today from a friend of mine at a distributor, and it should turn up at his tomorrow. So he's going to have a surprise sending it tomorrow. Yeah, hopefully he'll be stoked. Hopefully he won't be like, "What is this?" Like,
it takes it takes a special sort of person to go and do that. So I say absolute credit to you, man, because it's what sets people like yourself out from the people that let fame and whatnot go to the head and say make you ridiculous.
Well, thanks, dude. I feel like I've been incredibly blessed, as I said, like over the years with guitars and things. And I don't know, like every now and again, you have to sort of see an opportunity to pay it forward to somebody in a less fortunate position somehow. It doesn't happen very often. You don't get bombarded with these opportunities, and you just think, well, if all I can do is ask a couple of retailers or ask a couple of brands, is there something they can spare that's like lefty and sort of affordable and it wouldn't be missed and blah, 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 blah. Because this kid could really do it. Because the thing is, it's like, imagine you've got one guitar and you've got loads of sentiment behind it, but you have to sell it to fund like you starting over again. I don't know. If it was me, I don't have my first guitar I ever owned. It was stolen, and absolutely gutted. And I would hate for someone to have to like sell their first proper guitar because of some awful accident. I was like, no, keep the guitar. Like, it's worth something to you. It's sentimental. Like, keep it in the case or give it to your kid or something. Yeah, I'm like, let's find you something to like get your chops, get you something to get you through that's left-handed, So yeah, something turns up tomorrow, and I'm gonna message him and go, "What do you think? see if it's any good."
Well,
So we shall see.
hopefully he's watching this back or something like that, and he'll come across him like, oh.
That's all good. But yeah, no, this, what is life if you can't like help someone out every now and again,
I wish I could. I sold my first guitar years ago, and I still try and hunt for it, but I've had no such luck. Just to have it.
Yeah, it's easily done. Mine wasn't even like fancy. It was like a Mexican Stratocaster, like Olympic white, rosewood fretboard, like, not expensive. I bought it in turnkey on Denmark Street when that was still a thing. That's going back. Must have been about 13, 14, something like that. And yeah, it was when I was about 18, it was stolen out of the back of my car. Damn. Along with my dad's Les Paul copy, the one that I'd learned, like, that was 70s one, which was like, he was really, had a lot of sentiment behind, and an amplifier that didn't belong to me, and everything, like, but bag for like my effects pedals and all that, my multi effects thing and all the cables, all of it gone. I worked at like this like bar cafe place, and I literally swung my car into the car park for like 5 minutes in Reading to go in and just get the rotor and find out where I was working next and all that. So in like 5 minutes, came back out, and like someone had like screwdrivered the lock, car was emptied, all gone. Damn. And yeah, absolutely gutted. That moment is just like, oh,
one day it'll turn up in like CEX or something.
I mean, I'd really butchered this guitar, I'd done a bunch of mods to it, and I'd covered it in this god awful, like, I think I tried to like paint like the Jimi Hendrix like Monterey Strat kind of thing on it, but it looked awful. It looked like tribal. It looked like fucking tribal I'd done on this guitar. It looked really bad. And so I've seen photos of it since. I was like, whoa, I ruined that guitar, properly ruined it, stuck things to it,
Yeah.
It's absolutely worthless, but it's just, like you say, it's out there somewhere. It might be in a landfill now, but it's just like it would be nice to own the thing that got you started, and my first acoustic that I had got squashed at a house party. Like it was put on a chair, someone put a coat on it, someone sat on it, and then it was just like bang, flat. No. So I've still got the SG I joined Skindred with. Still got that, thankfully. So I kind of count that as my first guitar, and I'll never get rid of that. I'll never sell it. And it's not a particularly valuable SG. It's a Gibson SG Special. Bought it in Denmark Street. The guy totally ripped me off for it because I didn't really know what I was buying. And yeah, and that's completely beaten up, and it's got stickers on it, and pickups are different and all that stuff. But it's still
holds value.
It's still yeah, exactly. It's the original guitar. I've still got the original pickups for it in a drawer. I won't sell them. But yeah, I've still got that one.
Right, so we're running short on time, so I've got a couple more questions before we get to the final segment. So Skindred have been quite sort of they've been obviously trying to reschedule gigs. Like at first, I think it was about June time last year, there was talks of obviously having that sort of car park bunch of gigs, and obviously you've rescheduled the tour again. Like, how has that been? Because from your standpoint in dealing with that?
Yeah, I kind of like, I think because this is happening to everybody, I kind of like, okay, I feel like if we were just being persecuted for some reason, I mean, obviously a lot of musicians and a lot of crew feel like that because the rest of the world will be able to get back to work to some degree sooner rather than later. And obviously artists and touring bands and touring crew will be the last people to go back to work, presumably. And so there is a bit of a bone of contention about that, but it is what it is. And what's the alternative? There's not really much you can do. You just have to like let it play out. We're kind of powerless, so you just have to have this acceptance about it, I think. Fortunately, I've been wrapped up in other things to kind of keep the wheels turning on other stuff. So it's not that I haven't been busy. I'm a dad as well. I'm a single parent, so I have a child to look after when she stays with me, and yeah, I've got a full plate, man. I miss playing a lot, but I haven't really stopped since this time last year, one thing or another. I just moved into this place like a year ago, this time last year, and so I've been just on the go since then.
You've had other things to sort of occupy that time with, so it kind of gets put to the back of your mind, so to speak.
Well, kind of. I mean, we're writing at the moment. We're kind of like between cycles as well, so it's like, we've written differently every time we've made a record. This is like our 8th record. So on one hand, it's like business as usual, but on the other hand, it's like uncharted territory because this is the longest we've ever been apart in like 20 years. Like, I haven't played a note on stage in over a year. That's unheard of. I haven't done that since I was a kid. Simple. So that's weird. I've been quite grateful for the break and quite grateful for the rest. But yeah, like I don't, because I like our summer is pretty hectic. I'll be like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get a flight like 3 or 4 times a week for 3 months, and that's pretty grueling. But it's been nice to have a bit of a break from that. But at the same time, I want to get back to doing what I do.
Absolutely.
So it's just a waiting game, really. I have a fairly healthy level of acceptance with the way it is. I have as much cabin fever as anybody else. I don't feel like this is just happening to me. I feel like this is happening to all kinds of people. We're in it together. And when the time is right, it'll happen. And as frustrating as it is, you just got to sort of hang in there. And the good will out at the end of it. And it will be fucking awesome to get back doing that thing when it's time.
I will definitely be there.
In the meantime, we're just radical, wicked. Yeah. In the meantime, it's just writing tunes, and getting prepped for that.
Writing big things.
Next album. Yeah, writing some big things, and then taking it from there. Really.
This question is from my best friend, who is a huge Skindred fan. So when I said to him that I was getting you on the show, I said, is there anything you would like to ask him? And he's personally asked about what's your favorite song that people wouldn't expect that you would like.
What, a Skindred song?
Any song.
Let me find it. Hold on a sec. Let me find it. I can't remember the name of it. I know exactly what I'm going to say. And people are going to get weird. Hold on.
Taylor, this one's for you, sir.
So, hold on a sec. Bear with me. I think that I really love that Dua Lipa song, Don't Start Now. It's such a tune.
It is. The bass in that. It's got such a good little bass line in it.
Such a tune. Like the pre-chorus bit is killer. Yeah, it's
I
just
do like
wicked,
that song.
well written pop song. I'm a big fan of well written pop songs. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one for now.
There you go, Taylor. You have your answer, my friend. Awesome. So, as I say, I'm aware that we've got time constraints, so I'm going to kind of start to wrap this up. There was so much more I'd love to talk about, but I'm sure we can do an episode 2 with Mikey Demus at some point.
Sure, man.
So, the first question is on your desert island rig. I think I asked you this at the UK guitar show, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. You've got one pedal, one amp, and one guitar. What are you taking with you to your desert island?
Tough question. Okay. Yeah, honey badgers come in. In fact, no, scratch that. I'm going to scratch that. The amp I'm bringing is going to be the amp I'm bringing. Tricky one, that. Really love a Rockerverb Mark III, like 100-watt Rockerverb Mark III. Probably take that. I genuinely love the. I haven't played on any of the others because I haven't, but I've only got the prototype model of my signature Manson's MD2 guitar. It was the prototype for the whole range they sent me. I still got that, and that's the one I play on stage every night. I genuinely love that guitar. It's the one I used the most. I played every inch of the last record on that guitar, and yeah, absolutely love it. And the pedal would be the new one that Redbeard FX is about to release, which I can't tell you what it is. But again, genuinely, I did a bit of a recording session with a friend a couple of months ago, and I used this pedal, and it became an instant favorite. And it was like, this is the one. This is the one I've been waiting for all my life.
I can't wait for this.
So yeah, that's gonna be the pedal.
Awesome. I can't wait to see what it is. Secondly, what are you listening to at the moment?
Ooh, what am I listening to at the moment? Good question.
On your preferred streaming platform.
I really love the new Royal Blood stuff. Like, sounds killer. I just was sent an album by a band called Royal Swan. The album is it yeah, I think, or the band's called the album's called Royal Swan, and the band's called Foxjaw.
That name rings a bell.
And it's spelled PHOXJAW. Foxjaw. The album's called Royal Swan. That's a killer record. I'm really digging. What else? I'm having a big 90s thing at the moment. I've been listening to The Colour and the Shape a lot. Foo Fighters, the record. That's like 20 plus years old. That was like 25 years ago.
Nearly. Old. Jeez.
Nearly, yeah. Nearly. Really like the album by Des Rocks. What else we got? What else? Oh. I'm looking at, Nova Twins. Nova Twins record is killer.
Tidy. There's a nice broad spectrum.
Nice stuff to go and check out. Yeah, Nova Twins, Foxjaw. That's some new-ish stuff that I'm digging. I think it came out last year, but it's still new to me.
And lastly, where can people find out more about you and Redbeard?
More about me? Do you know, I'm actually putting together my own website at the moment.
Awesome.
Believe it or not, there's a bunch of stuff on there that I just links to all my various bits and pieces. Like, I have a YouTube channel, which for various reasons, I've got a ton of content that I'm still sitting on to release. Obviously, Redbeard FX is a thing. Skindred is a thing. I'm also about to, on the cusp of releasing a Kemper pack, which I'm just about to put up. So that would be the place to do it. But I haven't sorted my website out yet. I'm still figuring it out. But yeah, Redbeard FX is a good place to go and see what my pedals are all about. Obviously, Skindred.net is what we're up to. But you can find me on socials at Mikey Demus just about anywhere. So Instagram's probably my main hangout. Even though I don't tend to post loads, but that's where I sort of do most of my, liking and sharing. And
yeah, we're always liking and sharing bits and pieces together on there. There's always some good stuff going on.
Yeah, that's it. And Facebook, I'm often on like forums, like pedal forums, guitar forums, Absolutely. That kind of thing.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Mikey Demus, thank you ever so much for being a guest on Guitar Geeks this week. It's been an absolute delight having you. It's a shame we couldn't have more time, but I'm sure we can get another one in at some point.
Absolutely, man. No problem. And thanks for having me. Thanks for your time, dude.
I, of course, wish you the best of luck with the new Redbeard pedal coming out. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely killer, as everything that you always do is.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing what you're making of it.
I can't wait, my friend. I can't wait. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Guitar Geeks. I've been Josh Castle. You can get me at the Corona Mortis on Instagram. This has been Mikey Demus. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box below. Get yourself a honey badger, get yourself a red mist, and you will thank yourself for spending the $1 for it. So until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for tuning in.